and welcome to another BookTube video from me, Lauren, from Lauren and the Books, and happy Friday. I hope it's going well so far. Do I polish my glasses at the beginning of every video? I think I do. Today's video, as I polish my glasses on the blanket that's making this wobble, is a June wrap-up. So what I've read in June so far, as reading is going very well in June. I've read 9 books so far, and I'm filming this on the, I think it's the 17th of June today. So yes, I'm just doing a little mid-month wrap-up, which feels a bit mad because actually I only filmed my May wrap-up not so long ago because, I don't know if I've mentioned it, but I had toothache for a while. So yeah, so I'm going to be talking about 9 books today that I've read in the first half of May. The first book was a book I read on my e-reader, and I actually read this in 2 parts. I get books out from my library in e-reader form, ebook form I should probably say, using the Libby app, and this book is Know Your Name by Chanel Miller. So I read like the first 70% of this book, then it had to go back because it's a very popular book and I'm so pleased so many people are reading it, and I had to put another reservation on, which took another 6 weeks to come through. So I read it like it probably in the olden days, you know, when Dickens used to publish stuff week by week. I read this first 60% in one chunk and then the next 60% 6 weeks later. So but I feel like I'm glad I sort of do that in terms of the extension of it, because I think it's a really, really important book. So it is a memoir. It's Chanel Miller's memoir and account of when she was sexually assaulted by Brock Turner when she attended a party at university, and it was so horrific to read, but so, like, I guess what I wrote in my review is what I've written in my notes is that when I've used the word sort of strong and eloquent in a book to describe a book before, I didn't realise that I'd ever be reading this book, the strongest and the most eloquent of all books I've ever read. Her words in not only just having to relive her assault, just writing it down, but having to relive it when trying to press charges against Brock Turner and having to explain to people what had happened to her. Like, it's an absolute masterclass in strength and elegance, which is how I would use to describe it. Like, when it details from before the attack, gives you details of the attack, and then all of the court proceedings and police investigations following the attack, and her wanting an apology and her not getting the apology. It was an absolute powerhouse of a story, and I was left in sort of like awe afterwards. And it's a hard read, of course it's a hard read, but like I said, it's such an important read, and her writing is just fantastic. Like, it's just top of the table writing. But yeah, I thought it was amazing. Obviously it comes with a whole host of trigger warnings, but if you think you can read it, then please do, because it was just fantastic. Really, really good, strong start to the month. And then next up, very differently, I read a picture book, The Queen's Wardrobe, which is by Julia Goldin and Kate Hindley. And this is the story of Elizabeth II and her clothes. And it's also got a foreword by the costume designer from The Crown. This is a beautiful picture book and very much reminded me of a book I have called Our Rainbow Queen, which is an adult book by Sally Hughes, a non-fiction book which has like lots and lots of different outfits that the Queen has worn throughout her life, including leopard print, imagine. And this it does the same thing. So it starts from her birth and what she wore at the christening, and gives history of that, of the gown that she wore and why they no longer wear it, and about her wedding dress and how it was made on a ration book, and about her various tours she's done. Being a big fan of The Crown as I am, this was lovely to sort of read and remember how they'd recreated those outfits in The Crown. So yeah, I guess this is like very, very niche, and very sort of like this is made for a specific audience, but I really found it lovely. I I've really enjoyed reading it, and it's beautiful. Let's have a look what it looks like under the dust jacket, because I don't think I've done that yet. Oh look, it's got a little corgi on it. So yeah, lovely. Well, I would say, like, I got so much enjoyment out of it as an older reader. I don't know, I mean, I think as a child I probably would have enjoyed this. There's a lot of sort of like things about her meeting the Beatles, and about the specific tartan she wore. Oh, this was a favourite page with all the crown jewels. But yeah, it's definitely for the older side of readers that would read board books, which goes up to 35 because I read them. Next up was another book I read on my e-reader. No, that's not true. It was a book I got out from the library, but it's had to go back. Again, very popular. A new release. It's by Akala, The Dark Lady, which is a new release by Akala this year, which is very exciting. A teen novel that Akala's written. I read Akala's fiction book, Natives, earlier this year. Thought it was absolutely fantastic. One of the best non-fiction books I've read ever. So I was so delighted to see that he had a teen fiction book coming out this year, and it was a great sort of adventure story set in Edwardian, Edwardian or Elizabethan London. Oh god, I've sent it back now. Long time ago London, and it has the sort of like all the wonderful wordplay that I expected from Akala, having read his non-fiction book and having seen him being interviewed and knowing what a talented sort of wordsman, poet and journalist that he is. And yeah, this is a hint because Shakespeare was around. So was Shakespeare around during Elizabeth? I think Elizabethan. History is not my strong point, but the main character in the book, Henry, is very into words also, and is very much into William Shakespeare, and there's a lot of talk within the adventure story itself, which is sort of set across a sprawling London, and sort of reminded me a bit of His Dark Materials in that type of way. Like when Lyra's exploring her Oxford, this very much felt like Henry's London. And yeah, and he talks about sonnets, and he goes and sees a Shakespeare play, and then he's talking about that afterwards, and he writes his own sonnets and things like that. And yeah, I found it a great fun and a great joy. I wonder, it was the first, I don't think it's planned to be a series. It reads as a standalone, but I wonder if it will be expanded into a series. But yeah, definite adventure vibes there. And if you've got sort of middle grade and teen readers who are into these sort of adventure stories, and I would definitely recommend. Next up was That Reminds Me by Derek Owusu. I sadly only gave this 2 stars. This is the story of Derek's life told through fragments of memory and over time, I guess. Yeah, fragments of memory, and I think that's why, and I feel such a dick saying this, but I found it really fragmented, and sort of like these big sort of chapter, like each chapter was like maybe just one paragraph of text, and like it doesn't always read like it doesn't read how I would say things, but it's because it's someone's stream of consciousness. So I found the whole reading experience quite uncomfortable and quite hard to get my head around. But yeah, I really sadly didn't bond with it. But also there's trigger warnings in here for suicide, violence and addiction. But yeah, this just didn't work for me, which is such a shame, but I know it's beloved to many people. Yeah, there we go. Next up was a cookbook that I read. Oh. And I read this on my e-reader, and I'm actually going to buy myself a copy of it. I went to bloody Harbour Books last week, and I knew there was a cookbook I wanted, and I couldn't remember which one it was, and it's probably because I've read this already. But yeah, it was Midnight Chicken by Ella Risbridger. So it takes a very special cookbook for me to sit and read it cover to cover. And it takes an even specialer cookbook for me to sit and read it cover to cover when it includes meat recipes, because I'm a vegetarian. But honestly, I read this cover to cover. It was just so charming and cute, and just felt very special. It felt like the recipes were told in a very much a sort of storytelling vibe, and each recipe had a little backstory to it, and it sort of what am I trying to say? Chronicles Ella's life and sort of memories she's had, and mental health battles she's had, meeting people, falling out with people, family stories, friendship stories, all told through these beautiful recipes. Now, what also added to sort of like the charm of it was that there's no photos of the food in here, which previously is a complete no-no for me when it comes to cookbooks. I do not like cookbooks that don't have photographs in, because I want to see what my food's going to look like. But this had really sort of charming, whimsical, what I describe as sort of like scruffy drawings. And I don't mean that in a horrible way, I mean like they were beautiful. And it felt more like a sort of diary than a cookbook, and I just read it cover to cover. Now, I only gave it 4 stars, as in this cookbook's perfect, except it's got quite a lot of meat like recipes in there, and I don't eat meat, so I can't give it the 5 stars because I can't open it at any page and think, oh yeah, I'd want to eat that, particularly for a cookbook. Like, a cookbook to get 5 stars from me, and for me to sit and read a cookbook is a big enough thing. Like, it's really fucking good. Even if you're a vegetarian, I still feel like you'd get some warmth from this, because it felt very, very warm. I've made a note here. I'm going to make the cardamom and clementine Christmas cake. But yeah, I had a bad tooth and I was sort of gripping my my sore tooth throughout the desserts chapter. But an absolutely beautiful book, and really, really loved it, and can't wait to get my hands on a real life copy, so I can peruse it and get those pages sticky and looking like a lovely cookbook, as a cookbook should. Next up, so as I said, reading was quite good this week. Considering the end of May was not great, the beginning of June has been very, very good. And the next book I read was a 5-star book, and that was Rainbow Milk by Paul Mendes. And I absolutely loved it. It was perfect. Like, honestly, perfectly told, perfectly written, perfectly pitched. And I always know when a book is very, very dear and very, very special to me, because I think I could sit and read that again. And honestly, I finished it and thought I could sit and read it again. This is the story of Jessie's life, living in the Black Country in the UK, and growing up as part of a Jehovah's Witness family. And he gets disfellowshipped from the Jehovah's Witness family, from his Jehovah's Witness church, due to them finding out that he potentially might be gay. I think at this point he doesn't realise himself that he's gay, and he moves to London and takes up work as a sex worker. And before all this, you get a chapter at the beginning which talks about a chap who's come over as part of the Windrush generation, and I was reading that and thinking, this is perfect. And then you move away from that for the rest of the book and it's all Jessie. And I loved Jessie. I really, really loved him. He's so funny, like, and also it's sort of semi-autobiographical, so there's a lot of Paul, the author, in Jessie. He was just, I just rooted for him so much. And even at one point, and if you've read this book, you'll probably know exactly the point that I'm talking about, I let out a yelp of joy when I realised that someone from Jessie's life was now a bigger part of Jessie's life. And I honestly let out such a yelp of joy, and I just loved it. The accents and the dialects through this, as I said, Jessie's from the Black Country, so he's got a, oh god, I was about to do it then, but I probably should. Like Wolverhampton, Birmingham accent. It just literally leapt off the page and sang into my ears, the accents in this, and I just found it like beautiful. There is some highly graphic sex content in here, so if that's not something you would read, or if you were thinking of buying this as a gift for somebody and you don't want to buy them a gift that's got highly graphic sex content in there, it has. But it's so beautiful. Imagine a scene set in Paddington Station toilets where Jessie's giving a blowy to some bloke, and it still is the most beautiful thing you've ever read. Like, that is how this book was for me. I absolutely loved it. I can't recommend it enough. I loved it. I loved it. I loved it. I loved it. And then next up was another one of those board books. I read one of these last month as well. This is a Fairy Tale Revolution, published by Vintage. There's 4 of these. So these are fairy tales reimagined with a feminist twist. And this is BlueBlood by Mallory Blackman. Mallory Blackman has written the, oh my god, what is that even called? Noughts and Crosses series. I've read a few of her books. And I wasn't familiar with the original tale of BlueBlood. So I think I was coming to this story as a fresh one, and I thought the story was fine, like as is the case I think with fairy tales. And what I will say is that although I've enjoyed both of these books that I've read, I'm not quite sure who they're for, because for board books, so I I would think, oh yeah, that's a board book, that looks like it's for a child. It's actually got a T on the spine, which it didn't have on the last one I got out. What was the last one I read? Hansel and Greta. So this is for a teen audience, but they don't really look like it because it's big pictures. There's a lot of pictures, but also there's a lot of font and text and stuff. So yeah, I thought it was great, and I think I will continue with the series because I do like hearing these sort of like versions of fairy tales. I always enjoy that. Next book, oh, I really wanted to like this much more than I did. This was The Girl with the Louding Voice by Abby Dare, and I actually, this book has come to me many times. I got sent a proof of it when it first came out, which I kept thinking, oh, I'll get around to that, I'll get around to that. It's been on my TBR many times. David's mum bought it for me for Christmas, and I thought, oh yeah, maybe now will be the time I get round to it. My colleague listened to the audiobook and said that the audiobook was absolutely fantastic, and I thought, oh yeah, I'll get round to that, I'll get round to that. And what finally gave me the push was I was watching a TV show called Between the Covers, which is on the BBC, where Sarah Cox has a sort of a book club, a panel of 4 celebrities who are into books, and everyone talks about books that they've loved and things like that. And at the moment they're focusing on a book on it. Each show is focusing on a massive smasher from last year and a new release this year. And the massive smasher from last year they were talking about was The Girl with the Louding Voice. I think people are excited about the football. Now, what was extra special about this show is that it had a Joa Ando on it, who actually does the audiobook of this book, and she read out a bit from it, and I thought, right, that's it, I'm finally going to read it. And I went and downloaded the audiobook and started listening to it really shortly after that. But yeah, I just did not click with this. So this follows Aduni through her life. It's set in Nigeria, and she wants to have a louding voice. She wants to be educated. And there were little glimmers where I was thinking, oh yeah, maybe I will like this, maybe I will like this. But for me, it never got even to a simmer, really. And I was just so disappointed because I thought this was going to be a 5-star read. And maybe I think that's the reason I was putting it off so much. I was thinking, well, I'm going to love it, so there's no point, there's no rush in reading it. But yeah, it just didn't do anything for me. I just didn't click. The narration, again, was very good, but just didn't love it. Yeah, it was just all a bit lukewarm. So sad for me, but hopefully other people will also enjoy it. Now, to finish off the first part of June, I read 84 Charing Cross Road, which was a book that was sent to me. I still don't know who sent me this. Whoever that mystery person is that sent it to me, thank you so much, because I had such a wonderful time reading this. It is a book, and it's epistolary novel, which is told in letters, and it's a memoir from Helen Hanff, who lives in New York and writes to a bookshop in London on 84 Charing Cross Road to ask if they've got some books that she's after. She wants English editions, she wants editions that are more beautiful than the ones that she can go in the US. And so begins a friendship between Helen and in particular someone called Frank, who works in the Marks & Co bookshop, but also other members of the bookshop and Frank's wife and the people that live next door to Frank. And yeah, it's a real short little thing, the first book, and I just had such a wonderful time reading it. It was just so joyous. It really is short. This is how short it is. And then this edition has the second book, which is called The Duchess of Bloomsbury Street, which is told in diary entries about a visit that Helene makes to London. And yeah, it was just really warm and cosy, and yeah, it was lovely to sort of read a burgeoning friendship. The second book is definitely much slower, and I definitely enjoyed 84 Charing Cross Road much more. But overall, I was charmed by the whole bloody thing. It was just so lovely. So yeah, and I'll definitely be watching the film with this. Many people have said to me, well, you must watch the film's just as wonderful. So yeah, warmth, coziness, friendship. It was lovely. So that's what I've read in the first half of June. Let me know if you've read any of these books. Let me know how your reading's going. And yeah, I'll see you all again soon for another booktube video. Goodbye!